Hello, and welcome to the Indie Pop Girl, the podcast where you will find music chat, new releases, hidden gems, and nostalgic deep dives. I am back with another episode in my Albums That Surprised Me series, and today I'll be discussing Hit Me Hard and Soft by Billie Eilish, which was released in 2024, a record I already consider a modern pop classic. Hit Me Hard and Soft is the third studio album by Billie Eilish and was released on the 17th of May 2024, and this was written and produced with her brother Phineas, her frequent collaborator from Billie's previous work. It's difficult trying to put this record into a sonic category as it is so varied. Billie does continue with the alternative pop and bedroom pop from her previous work, but Hit Me Hard and Soft also dabbles in electronica, acoustic folk, indie rock, and chamber pop with hints of baroque. The record received widespread critical acclaim and was commercially successful. It topped the charts in over 20 countries, thanks in part to the massive hit single Birds of a Feather, which is still going strong well into 2025. Billie made the decision not to release any singles prior to the album's release, and I think that was such a smart move because we got to experience this record in its entirety, how Billie intended it to be, and it is so refreshing that she made this decision. There have been albums released where the rollouts have been a hot mess, too many singles, too many spoilers, and it's just a bit of an anticlimax when you get to the actual record. Billie obviously cares about her art and her craft, and I really respect and admire that so much. This is a record that requires your full attention, especially on the first listen. I appreciate that Billie was thinking about the listener and the album experience for this record, and Lunch was released as the first single on the day the album was released. I have discussed in my previous episodes that I don't like hearing lots of singles before I go into a new release, as I think it just spoils the anticipation. I hope other artists take inspiration from Billie, as I think it's an old school approach. Especially with social media, it can be quite difficult avoiding singles and hearing snippets as the build-up is approaching. The rollout for this record was perfect because it is proof of the staying power that the singles have had on the charts. Birds of a Feather and Wildflower are still present just over a year later. You might be wondering why I have chosen this record as part of this series. Well, I've always admired Billie and her artistry. I listened to her second album, Happier Than Ever, quite a lot during 2021, and I connected to a lot on that record, but I wasn't really a super fan at that point. I remembered her debut, When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go, back in 2019. But I only returned to that a few times in that year. But after Happier Than Ever, I went back and refreshed my memory with the rest of her discography. When Billie released What Was I Made For from the Barbie film, that song really piqued my interest in Billie again, and I really had an instant connection to that song. It is so powerful and beautifully written. Her vocal delivery on that song really spoke to me during a time when I really needed a song in my life which was so vulnerable The message of that song has really helped me through the dark times, and what I love about Billie's songwriting is that she just gets it. I assume her lyrics have helped a lot of people, and that is so powerful. Billie's honesty and vulnerability is her strength, and combined with her unique vocals, she really is a special artist. I touched on my Wolf Alice episode last week that the idea behind the Albums That Surprised Me series is that I have chosen 6 records that have all spoken to me during the first listen. For Hit Me Hard and Soft, this record just elevated my love and respect for Billie. As soon as Billie revealed the artwork, I had a feeling that this record was going to be something special. I think I mention this in every episode, but the artwork is so important and I can't stress that enough. Billie's vision is so clear for this era, and when you listen to the record, you can just see the colours and the stunning photography. Billie is a true artist, and what she creates with her brother is just magic. This record on the first listen completely blew me away. I was taken aback by the beauty of this record. The songwriting is next level. The production is off the scale. And Billie's vocals on this record, holy shit, she has never sounded better. Hit Me Hard and Soft just grabbed me instantly, and I had to include it for this series. Because I mentioned earlier that I wasn't really a super fan of Billie, but spending time with this record has just made me realise how special she is. I am staggered by the maturity in this record, and we forget that Billie is only 23. But my God, she conveys so much emotion. And I will discuss this further when I talk about the individual tracks. As I have mentioned in previous episodes, I will not be playing clips of the songs, so if you are curious, then please support the artists I cover by streaming, downloading, or buying physical copies. Thank you. Track 1, Skinny. I'm just going to put a little disclaimer here. The content might be triggering for some, so do please listen with care and feel free to skip. So Skinny opens up the record with a whisper rather than a bang, but that's exactly what makes it so powerful. Billie leans into restraint here, her voice barely more than a murmur, backed by delicate guitar and strings. Lyrically, it's intimate and self-critical. She reflects on body image and how perception can shift with fame and attention, singing, "People say I look happy just because I got skinny." There's no triumph in that line. It's laced with discomfort, and your weight should not define who you truly are. What is heartbreaking is that Billie confirms that the old me is still me, and maybe the real me, and I think she's pretty. So Billie knows deep down that she is happy with herself, and she is still the same person. But with fame, there is also a price to pay. Reading comments from keyboard warriors, gossip sites, and magazines can all take its toll. Losing weight is a result of pressure, and that you have to look a certain way in the public eye to fit in, or whatever that is. The body shaming and judgments still don't stop even if you are skinny. People still write hurtful things about you, and this has deeply affected Billie. The most striking aspect in this song is when we get to the chorus. Billie's vocal delivery, full of emotion and pain. She sings, "And I still cry, cry, and you know why." And this tells us everything. She is letting her fans know how the actions of these trolls affect her. And it just makes you feel so sad for Billie. I hope Billie is directing the chorus to all the cruel fuckers who have caused her so much pain and ended up affecting her mental health. She sounds so vulnerable, her voice on the edge of breaking. Billie packs so much emotional impact into this song. The first time I heard this, it just moved me to tears. To open up the record like this makes a statement for the whole record, and that this will take you on an emotional journey. I hope Billie is doing better now, and honestly, fuck you to all those poisonous trolls who think it's so big to take a shot behind a keyboard. But what surprised me most about Skinny is how confidently understated it is. It sets the tone for an album that isn't chasing chart dominance, it's chasing truth. There's something quietly devastating about starting the record this way. It doesn't demand your attention, it earns it. The gorgeous outro with the strings is interpolated from the greatest vocal melody, and this appears again in the last track, Blue, and I'll discuss this further later on in the episode. Track 2, Lunch. Lunch flips the mood entirely. After the hushed vulnerability of Skinny, this track bursts through like a rush of colour. It's bold, cheeky, and unmistakably queer. A playful pop song wrapped in a funky, slinky production that still somehow keeps Billie's signature edge. Sonically, it's one of the most accessible moments on the album, built around a tight, bouncy bass line and a beat that could easily live on a dance floor. It's got that indie pop vibe, but still captures Billie's unique style and vocal delivery. But lyrically, there's a lot more going on. Lunch is one of Billie's boldest and most carefree tracks to date. It's interesting following this up after Skinny, as Billie very cheekily here describes her preference of lesbian sex as having lunch. Billie explores her desire with a wink here, singing, "I could eat that girl for lunch." It's flirtatious, but her vocal delivery is confident and she's expressing her sexuality and owning it. And that is so empowering. There is something so powerful when female artists claim and own their sexuality and are not apologetic about it. This is how they want to express themselves in their art, and I applaud that so much. What surprised me most about Lunch is that it wasn't just Billie being more overt about her sexuality, it's how joyful this song is. It's a moment of liberation disguised as a pop banger, and for an artist who built her early career on shadows and subtlety, that kind of openness feels like a milestone. It's fun and catchy, and Billie perfectly balances the sexual content as she makes it flirty and playful, which just matches the instrumental. It is just a perfect pop song banger. Track 3, Chihiro. We take another sonic turn here with the next track, Chihiro, and this is probably my favourite track on the album, and it was one of my most played tracks of last year, and I still love it to death now. The title of the song is inspired by the character Chihiro from the film Spirited Away that was released in 2001. This track is so layered and complex, and I have to give praise here with the production handled by Phineas. He absolutely served with the production. There is so much going on if you listen carefully. It is a song that gets better with repeated listens, and both Billie and Phineas sprinkle so much synth magic into this song. The attention to detail is just off the scale. And I have to mention during verse 3, as Billie is singing, Phineas adds some subtle guitar in the mix. You can barely hear it, but you know it's there, and it's just genius. The production is minimalist at first, built on a pulsing synth and reverb-soaked vocals that echo like they're being sung from a different room. But as the track evolves, it becomes hypnotic. There's a slow build, almost trance-like, that gives way to an extended instrumental coda where Billie's chopped up vocals swirl and stutter like fragments of a memory. The build up with that Daft Punk style synth is just so satisfying, and the only way you can appreciate the beauty of this track is on headphones. It just puts you in a trance-like state of mind, and Billie's vocals just adds to the atmosphere. This track has some of Billie's best vocals and the best of her career. And what struck me as I was listening to this album for the first time is the way that Billie is pushing and using her voice in a way that she hadn't before. She still delivers her signature whisper style, but there are times on this record where she really lets go and belts out. She definitely uses her vocal in this track like an instrument to add texture within the production, a technique reminiscent of Björk or Caroline Polachek, to be experimental with not only the vocals but with the instrumentation and production. The outro of this song is stunning. Billie's background vocals sound like she's drowning out in the production and just matches the cover of the artwork. This track definitely feels like you are underwater, and I feel that the instrumental of the outro is a metaphor for this. Track 4, Birds of a Feather. This was released as the second single on the 2nd of July 2024, and I had to check if the song is still charting a year later, and it is still sticking around on various Billboard charts in the US, and it also continues to chart here in the UK. The stats and sales on this track are absolutely staggering. I had to have a look on Wikipedia, and the impact of this song is just incredible. Birds of a Feather is one of the most deceptively simple songs on the album, but emotionally it hits hard. It's a love song, plain and direct, wrapped in a soft indie pop shimmer that feels almost nostalgic. Think early 2000s teen drama soundtrack, but elevated with Billie's signature melancholy. The production leans into that vulnerability, clean guitar tones, airy harmonies, and a melody that sticks. There is something open-hearted about it, even when the subject matter turns dark. It's the kind of song that sounds like it could be played at a wedding or during a breakup montage, and that ambiguity is part of the charm. There is something about the song that is resonating with the public and Billie fans worldwide. To me, it's got that timeless quality to it, And the song explores the theme of love and that longing for a connection that people are just lapping up. Is it my favourite from the record? No, but there is no denying the power and emotional impact this song has. Billie's vocal delivery in her signature style, but here she switches it up and provides a vocal belt in the song which just comes from nowhere. All these doubters who are critical about Billie's vocals and say she just whispers, well, listen to her vocals on this song and across this record and you will be proved wrong. She has become one of my favourite vocalists on the strength of this record. Billie could just do ad-libs and vocal runs and it would still make me emotional. She is just blessed with that heavenly tone that very few can pull off. I just need to mention the little synth whistle that comes in during the outro of the song. I was talking about the attention to detail, and something like this I really appreciate. The sound of the synth sounds like birdsong. Just a lovely touch to a lovely song. Track 5, Wildflower. Wildflower is delicate and quietly devastating. The kind of song that doesn't just tell a story, it aches with it. Billie taps into the complex emotional narrative of Billie being the emotional arc for a friend after a breakup. But later, Billie begins to date her friend's ex. And as a result, Billie confronts this guilt in the song. Musically, it's stripped back. Gentle acoustic strumming, soft harmonies, and a floating vocal accompanies the production. It's one of the most vulnerable moments on the album, and the restraint in the production gives it room to breathe. The lyrics and Billie's vocal performance are the star of the show here, and this is perfectly placed in the halfway mark in the record. Billie shows guilt in the chorus, singing, "But I see her in the back of my mind all the time. And did I cross the line?" I think the line, "Valentine's Day, crying in the hotel. I know you didn't mean to hurt me, so I kept it to myself," is tied to the narrative explored in track 9, Bittersweet. Billie's complex songwriting and maturity is displayed here, and even though this is a record full of varied sonics and atmosphere, it is beautifully cohesive. What surprised me most about Wildflower is how emotionally nuanced it is. It is not a dramatic confrontation, it's the soft grief of unspoken feelings, and Billie captures that with haunting clarity. It's the kind of song that lingers long after it ends, and that stunning outro with the acoustic guitar and Billie's echoey vocals, just wow. Track 6, The Greatest. The Greatest is the emotional centerpiece of the record, a slow burning ballad that just builds and eventually explodes. It begins with a sense of quiet heartbreak, all soft guitar and fragile vocals, but by the end it's practically bursting with frustration, bitterness, anger and defeat. Lyrically, Billie's mourning a relationship where she gave everything and still came up short. She's doing everything in her power to keep this relationship afloat. But in verse 1, it is obvious that Billie is the one doing all of the work, but getting nothing back from this person. Billie tells the listener that she isn't sleeping, probably due to the stress, and she explores this further in the closing track, Blue. This is Billie at her most emotionally direct. And as the song builds, so does her voice, from a whisper to a near cry, almost yelling by Billie's usual standards. I touched on Billie's vocals on Birds of a Feather, and this track probably displays the best vocals of her career. You can feel everything when the track explodes. You feel her pain, her frustration, being let down by this person. The way how Billie conveys so much emotion is a gift that she has. Her vulnerability is one of her strengths. The saying that the artist has to suffer for their art, well, there is truth in that. Billie speaks from the heart and pours everything into her artistry. The production mirrors that arc perfectly. Phineas starts with subtle bare instrumentation, then gradually layers in drums and synths and aching vocal harmonies. And by the time the track hits its final third, it's a full blown catharsis. What surprised me about The Greatest, especially on the first listen, is just how raw it feels. Billie has always played with tension and release, but this time she lets go and it is breathtaking. It's not just one of the best songs on the album, it might be one of the best songs she's ever written. To interpolate your own melodies in different keys in the outros of Skinny and the closer, Blue, from this song is just genius. I have seen clips of Billie and Phineas in the studio when they are writing and creating together, and I just find it fascinating. I think a lot of people will resonate with the lyrics of this song, and if you have been in a one-sided relationship, and I can speak from experience here, there are all sorts of feeling and emotions that come with it. People will connect to Billie's own struggles and find a connection to their own experiences, and to me, that is so powerful and profound. Track 7, L'amour de ma vie. This song, translated to The Love of My Life in French, is probably the most striking track on the record in terms of instrumentation. The song is composed with two distinct parts that make up the one track. I will never forget my first experience with this track. I had no idea that the transition was coming, and when it did arrive, I was absolutely speechless. I'm hoping that you guys out there listening to this episode have heard this song and are familiar with it. But if you are new to Billie and never heard this song before and are curious, then I am going to discuss some spoilers with the transition. So I suggest you listen to the track and then return back to this episode. It begins like an easy listening lounge tune, very laid back and chill. Billie's vocals sound like she is smirking, singing through the lyrics. She has had it with this person, being fucked around for too long, and this song is Billie's time to take the control back and finally move on. This is classic breakup ballad material. It's quite tender and confessional, but the shift that eventually comes in is so unexpected. The over now section is the second part, and the only way I can describe the transition for this is pure genius. I love Billie's pitch vocals. It reminds me of her debut. I would love to know the idea behind the over now section and how Billie and Phineas came to the decision of making the section a total banger. It's high tempo, completely chaotic with a synth riff reminiscent of Blinding Lights by The Weeknd, complete with 80s synths and high energy. Billie's vocals are no longer smooth from the first part. Here she is drenched in auto-tune and the lyrics are more direct to match the shift in the instrumental. She no longer feels the anger, the sadness and stress. The over now section is definitely the point where Billie is walking away with no regret. Calling the ex mediocre in the chorus is such a burn, and when we get to the outro, the song yet transitions into a 90s dance trance vibe. Again, something that I would not expect on a Billie Eilish record. I love how experimental and wild this track is. It's unhinged in the best way, and I am here for it. I just need to mention that Billie released the Over Now extended edit, and it's worth checking out if you are a fan of the song. Track 8, The Diner. I will be honest, at first, I found this track to be really jarring in the context of the album, and it took a while to grow on me. It just didn't click for me sonically, but then I started to warm up to it. I also did some reading about the track to get some context, and my understanding is that Billie is putting herself in the shoes of a stalker and using her own experience with stalkers, which just elevates the eerie vibe that this track creates. The production is unsettling, almost cinematic, but disguised as a pop song. Billie uses her whispery tone to her advantage here, and it really works with the context of the song. There is something hypnotic and claustrophobic about the atmosphere, and this isn't the first time Billie has touched on the stalker narrative. She mentions this on the tracks Getting Older and also NDA from the Happier Than Ever record. But here she has turned up the volume and the lyrics are straightforward and direct. The production does remind me of something lifted from her debut, which could be a callback here with the beat and the strong bass. Billie sings in the bridge, I memorised your number, now I call you when I please, which is so chilling. The fact that this stalker character has the phone number memorised, and the stalker is implying here that they can call the person from jail and just continue with the creepy stalker behaviour, just adds to the eeriness. It's a unique track for sure, from the concept, the instrumental and production. Billie has shaped this as a total character piece, but to me, it also feels like a commentary on fame, obsession, and how easily intimacy can turn sinister. Especially with the rise of social media, it makes us all the more uncomfortable, and that is the intention, and Billie pulls this off. This track is one of the boldest creative turns she has ever taken. Track 9, Bittersweet. Bittersweet is one of the most abstract and experimental tracks on the album. The title, which is a clever play on the word bittersweet. Here, Billie is using the title in the context of a hotel suite, tying in with the themes explored in Wildflower, that she was left crying on Valentine's Day in a hotel suite. The suite could also represent the song, which is broken up in different parts like a musical suite. Again, this is Billie and Phineas pushing their levels of experimentation and songwriting. In someone else's hands, this could be a recipe for disaster, but it is staggering how they are able to pull it off. I admire how they are not going for conventional songwriting on this album, that they are taking risks, and I love that. It's not designed to be catchy or radio friendly. It's atmospheric, experimental, and full of emotion and vulnerability. Musically, it's a shapeshifter. The song opens up with a wall of synths and it is quite harsh. It just comes right in and makes you take notice. And it definitely makes you intrigued for the rest of the song. And it definitely goes places where you don't expect it to. When I was listening to this record for the first time, I was thinking about the title of the record, and I totally get where Billie is coming from. There are aspects scattered across the record which represents the hard moments where the instrumentation goes darker, more layered and complex. The soft moments represented in Skinny and Wildflower, and at the same time there's also the hard and soft elements which are scattered throughout the record, and Bittersweet is an example of this. We have soft layered vocals and dreamy instrumentation, almost lullaby like, before shifting into darker, more distorted territory. Billie and Phineas play with structure here. There's no obvious chorus, no standard verse, chorus, verse format. Instead, it flows like a suite in movements with motifs that come and go. Verse 2, she sings, L'amour de ma vie, love so bittersweet, open up the door for me. I love how Billie makes references to the other tracks on the record. It is so creative, and she did this previously on the Happier Than Ever record. The way how part 2 and part 3 transitions is so satisfying. The synth melody that comes in is the melody lifted from the closer Blue and just transitions perfectly. I love how confidently weird Bittersweet is, but that's what makes it so fascinating. It doesn't ask to be understood right away. It invites you to sit with it, get lost in it, and find your own meaning. What I really appreciate is that Billie is letting these tracks breathe and build, and not making songs for TikTok trends or chasing hits. Yes, she has had chart success with certain songs here, but this is more than just a pop record. This is intelligent experimental pop that will stand the test of time. Track 10, Blue. The track Blue consists of True Blue and Born Blue, which were previous outtakes, and here Billie and Phineas pieced the two songs together to create Blue, a stunning closer which ties the album's themes together. In verse 1, Billie references other tracks on the record, and it is just so well written. The care and attention that Billie and Phineas create is just next level, and the way how this track progresses and transitions again is so unexpected. I remember listening to this for the first time, and when it blends into part 2, it left me speechless. The instrumental actually took my breath away. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The bridge and how dark it becomes in part 2. Billie's vocals are modified and pitched lower, and it sounds so unsettling, but my god, it sounds so good on headphones. The drums on this track are so effective, and then it switches to a trip hop style beat. The strings that come in and then the drums become more prominent. It definitely transports me back to the 90s listening to Portishead and Massive Attack. It is so cinematic, dark and unsettling, and it just ticks all the boxes for me. I love songs that blend strings with an electronic production. I dig that cinematic feel, and I hope Billy and Phineas create more songs for films in the future because they just create magic together. I remember when the record dropped and people losing their mind at Billy speaking at the end of Blue saying, "But when can I hear the next one?" I was reading comments from fans saying that Hit Me Hard and Soft is going to be a double album and that part two is coming. Fans have also been speculating that the second part will be represented by the colour red. This line could also mean that fans are always wanting more. As soon as a record drops, some fans are just never happy. The pressure of constantly feeding the fandom. It could be why we get so many different versions of records now. Most have a deluxe or a special edition to keep the era going. I think maybe we would have had the deluxe by now if Billy wanted to release more tracks. But I really hope we get a second part or a sequel at some point. I'm sure Billy knows what she is doing. You never know, it could be a surprise drop. And I hope that happens. Hit Me Hard and Soft received glowing praise and widespread critical acclaim. NME, The Independent, The Daily Telegraph, and The Guardian all praised the record and Billy's growth and songwriting. It featured on so many rankings of the best albums of 2024 lists with publications. And I had a look at the year-end rankings and it is so impressive. 2024 was stacked for releases, especially with the pop releases. And I mentioned before in a previous episode that my personal pick for 2024 was Imaginal Disc by Magdalena Bay. But Hit Me Hard and Soft was very close. It was tied with Ali X Girl with No Face. All three records blew me away, and it was very difficult trying to rank them. Billie earned 7 nominations at the Grammys this year, including Album of the Year, but she left the ceremony empty-handed. It was so disappointing, and many fans and publications discussed the snub. It was a competitive night, and I'm not going to knock any winners here, but I'm glad that Billie was recognised by the Grammys for her work with this record. She poured her heart and soul into Hit Me Hard and Soft, and this will still be talked about and highly influential in years to come. Hit Me Hard and Soft ticks all the boxes for me, from the artwork, concept, the lyrics and vocal performance, to the production and the instrumentals. It is a tight 10 tracks, and every second, every minute is not wasted. Billie delivered a beautiful record which to me is already a pop classic. This is what pop music needs, this level of an artistic statement with boundary pushing production and experimentation. Billie served and delivered with artistic growth, in maturity, with critical success, singles which are still present and charting. She's touring all over the world. Audiences connect with Billie because she is one of us. She is real and true to herself, authentic, and despite her young age, she is blessed with a gift that she shares to her fans. She has a bright future ahead of her, and I can't wait to see what she does next. Hit Me Hard and Soft elevated my love and respect for Billie, And if you are a casual fan, I hope you listen to the record and maybe your opinion will change. I would love to know what your favourite song is. Do you have this record on vinyl? And I would love to know which variant you have. Please let me know. I couldn't see Billie on this tour, but if you are listening and you have seen her, I hope you had the best time. And please leave me a comment. I would love to hear from you guys. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Please follow me on Instagram and Threads at the Indie Pop Girl. If you've enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you could follow and share, as it helps other music lovers to find the show. I'm also on YouTube. You can find me at the Indie Pop Girl podcast, and I'll be grateful if you could subscribe, as I'm creating content in shorts and posting teasers for upcoming episodes. I've also created a public Spotify playlist and added some of my favourite tracks from the artists that I've already covered. And as the episodes grow, I'll be adding more. So if you are curious with any of the artists and albums that I've covered, please give it a listen, and who knows, you might find a new discovery. You can find me on Spotify at the Indie Pop Girl, and the playlist is called Favourite Tracks from Podcast Episodes. I'll be back very soon with the next episode in my Albums That Surprised Me series, and we're staying underwater in a way. Billie's album cover hinted at deep emotional dives with its cool aquatic tones, and next week we'll be fully submerged. Let's just say, get ready to dive into something dreamy, sultry and soaked in synths. Until then, I'm Rachel, the Indie Pop Girl. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.